Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you for taking the time to check out today's live stream, where, of course, we're going to be going over a little bit about consistency. Make sure my screen's here where it needs to be. Okay, so let me pull up today's stream. So we're going to be going over why consistency is, of course, better than focusing on perfection. So this is a stream where we're really going to be going over more about sticking to a process rather than focusing solely on trying to perfect every single aspect of your routine. And that's basically what we're going to cover in particular with this particular live stream. So, what I do want to share with you guys before I go through a few of these points, of course, I do have my website, which is bponlinefitness.com. You can check out a ton of information on there related to online fitness coaching. Another thing also that I do want to share is that, of course, I do these live streams every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, but I do want to share that I have been doing TikTok and YouTube live streams. So this week I didn't do a TikTok live stream yesterday because of my schedule being kind of crazy. So those will actually return on next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'll be doing a TikTok stream next Tuesday. I do have it set up to where you can see my scheduled stream when you go to my profile. So if you follow at Brandon SP Fit on TikTok, you can find my profile and you'll see where I have a live stream scheduled for next week. So I do want to share that I've actually figured out how to schedule those live streams in advance so that you know when those are going to happen. So that'll be next week. So I don't want you guys to think that I've completely avoided doing those. I'm still going to be doing those TikTok live streams of course, every Tuesday. Tomorrow I will be doing a YouTube live stream. I've started to do that every Thursday at the same time as well, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And when you go to my YouTube, you can click the notify me button under that live stream and it will let you know when I do go live. That'll be, of course, tomorrow, the same time as we are today. But again, I'm going to be talking about a separate topic where I'm really sort of going to be expanding upon this topic a little bit. But we're going to be talking about why you should have a why that's not focused solely on your appearance, in the aesthetic side of things, but seeing fitness as more of beyond, sort of the physical appearance aspect. And that's basically what I'm going to be discussing tomorrow. So I did want to share that with you guys today. I won't, of course, show you my website and everything today because I'm sure you guys have pretty much got it at the point, got it at this point. So again, if there's any questions that you have about what I have to offer related to online fitness coaching, please feel free to let me know. But just wanted to say that in advance. So let's go ahead and get started with talking about why consistency beats perfection in fitness. So, even though this topic may seem pretty straightforward, there's going to be quite a bit of different points that I'm going to be going over as we go through this particular topic. So, we're going to be going over each of these points, and I think you guys will get, a good sort of understanding on really how to approach your fitness routine in a unique way as we're going through these points. So, we're going to be discussing the all or nothing trap, minimum effective dose for progress, momentum versus motivation, why consistency builds momentum, and how relying on motivation alone sets you up to fail. Imperfect workouts still count, building identity through repetition. Progress is built on boring basics, the real cost of skipping days, and flexible structure for busy lives. So, these are all of the different points that we're going to be sort of discussing today and diving into. Now, like I said, you may be wondering why I spent a little bit more time going over a topic like this. And there's a lot of reasons why, because when we approach fitness, we have to think of it in the context of consistency more than anything else. And I think a lot of us can really get caught up, especially when we're trying to build a routine. We get caught up in all of the, trying to perfect every aspect of a routine. But when we strategically structure our workouts to where it makes the process more seamless, it fits into our everyday life, it makes it so much easier to stick to that process rather than, again, trying to perfect every little thing to make it work as, perfect as possible, in other words. So, as we go through this particular topic, let's go ahead and get started with the all or nothing trap. So before I do, of course, pull this up, I do want to fix my screen because I noticed that it's a little bit off center here. Let me make sure I fix that. I don't know why this is out of whack like this. Usually it's already set up properly. So I apologize about that. So I think we should be good there. So again, guys, the stream may be sort of slowing a little bit. If it does, again, just let me know because my connection sometimes can be a little bit crazy. So let me see if I can get this pulled back up here. So what we're going to be going over next is the all or nothing trap. So what does this look like in particular? So if I can't do the full workout, I'll skip it. So these are some examples of what this really means. So if my diet isn't perfect, I've already messed up, waiting for the perfect time, energy, or plan. So these are all different sort of points that we're asking ourselves as we're going through, this particular topic in itself. So why does this hold us back? So this leads to an inconsistency in our routine. It leads to missed sessions in our workouts, and it creates a cycle of guilt, burnout, and restart in our routine. So what this does is this turns fitness into pressure instead of progress. So as we're continuing on here, another thing you need to, be aware of is that the truth is that progress comes from repeated effort and not perfect execution. As well as a 20-minute workout still builds momentum. So you don't need a workout that's really extremely long, especially as you're getting started. And imperfect nutrition is still going to support your goals. So this is really relatable to a lot of people, especially when they get started. And this is something I notice, with any client that I've worked with as they're getting started. They do kind of have this notion where they feel like everything has to be sort of perfected. And that's okay to have that. Like I had that too, when I was, really starting with my routine. But the thing is this kind of goes into the concept of mindset. When you shift your mindset and how you approach your routine, it's going to make a massive difference. So just because, like, for example, for me today, I was having sort of a moment today as far as my workouts. Like I was just done with the gym right after I got in there. And I know you may think, I'm a trainer and I do this, full time and, I'm passionate about it, but there's still a lot of days where I go to the gym and I'm not feeling it. And today was kind of one of those days where I just wasn't all there. I was ready to get out of there. But despite that, I still pushed through. I still did my workout in its entirety. I didn't stop it. I didn't just, get up and leave. I still pushed through because I knew that it was worth it to do it regardless. Even if I'm really not feeling it, even if I'm sort of not in the mode, I was just, let me just get through this and, that'll be it. And two, a lot of times that happens like if I have a lot of things running through my mind and I go into a workout session, it becomes one of those sessions where it's like I want to get out of here. Like there's so many things on my mind, I just want to get out of here. So that's going to happen. You're going to have those times where when you go in, it's just like you're not feeling it at all, and that's okay. But what you need to think about again is shifting that mindset as you're going into the gym and approaching it again with that mindset of, you know, progression, even if it's a small step forward, even if, again, even if that workout is not perfect, even if it's not, maybe you weren't, really all there in that particular workout, what matters is that you actually got through it. And that's the way you have to approach it when you're going through those moments. And this is the same way too when we're thinking about nutrition. Nutrition is the same way. There's moments where I go outside of what is, normally my nutrition plan. And, I feel guilty about it. I feel like I should have, really tried to do something different with how I approached my nutrition for that day. And so, what I try to remind myself is that's one, occasion that sort of messed up maybe my meal plan for that day, but that's okay because I can start over again tomorrow and I can just approach it that way. So you can't change something that's, already set in stone and set in place. You just have to focus on what's to come next. And if you already have that mindset and knowing that, you know, you're you're going to get back to it, like once you've built that mindset, there comes a time when you are so consistent that if you have an off day, you're going to easily pick back up on it. You're going to easily, once you're already in that mindset, it's just going to be automatic. And that's the best thing you can do is to build that habit to get into that mindset in itself. So, the minimum effective dose for progress. This is a really important point to be in mind. So, what is the minimum effective dose? And I've discussed this, I believe, once or twice before in previous streams. So, the minimum effective dose is the smallest amount of training, nutrition, recovery that is needed to still see progress. So, a lot of times with routines, more isn't always better. Progress comes again from a combination of stimulus and recovery. So, not from doing the most, but from doing what's effective and repeatable. So, this goes into that concept where with a workout routine, you want to make sure that you make it as consistent as possible. And this is something that I mentioned with clients is that when you're focusing on a workout routine, you want it to be able to be integrated into your daily life so that it becomes this consistent habit where it's something that you don't have to necessarily think about. And that's sort of what we're talking about here. Consistency again is greater than overload. So a routine you can sustain for 3 to 4 times per week beats an intense plan you quit after 2 weeks. So again, what we're thinking about here is that we don't have to have, you know, working out for 3 hours a day or, working out 5 days a week. All we have to have is that minimum, starting point. What I always recommend with clients who start out is usually at least 3 workouts per week. That's a good starting point to where you're building a routine. It's really simple to start that routine, usually Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You separate it in that way, and it's easy to, stay consistent with that. You just have 3 days a week that you're doing your workout, and so it makes it more sustainable. So starting out, that's the best option. Now, of course, if you're at the point to where you're already sort of seeing or you're already, in the mode of where you can actually do more workouts, that's of course when you would progress from there. But for somebody who's starting out 3 times a week or 4 times, if that's, a good starting out point for you as well, if you're able to do that, that's going to work at the same time too. So again, what you need to think about is creating that consistency. a routine that's going to allow you to be consistent as possible. Again, this isn't something where you have to go completely, full force and, it's something you do steady. This is kind of the same way when we're thinking of progressive overload. With progressive overload, when you're increasing weights, you it's the same concept where we're focusing on using a certain weight and we're staying with that weight, each week until we know that we can get to the point to where we can increase, the intensity for that workout in particular. So it's kind of the same concept here where we're just focusing on, you know, having a good combination again, that stimulus and that recovery. So even when you're doing a 3 times a week or 4 times a week workout plan, you still want to make sure that your recovery is in check, that you're including some active recovery in your routine, but you still want to make sure that you're building a routine that's very sustainable. And again, a sustainable routine really starts out small. When you start out with something that, again, it could be like 30 minutes, for a specific workout for that, for each day. So like 3 times a week, you could do a 30-minute workout. And then once you've gotten to the point to where you can sustainably stay with that 30-minute workout for a duration of time, then you can maybe increase it to an hour, and do the same 3 times a week. So you can think of it in that same way, you know, really trying to make that habit sustainable, if that makes sense. So again, I'm just trying to give you a little bit of an idea on how you can, approach a routine as you're getting started to make it sustainable. So the next point I want to mention is momentum and it being better than your motivation. So this is something that I mention a lot of times, and I hear this a lot of times when I'm on calls with potential clients, that they always mention motivation. And this is something that I hear a lot of times. So the thing with the motivation is that it's going to be unreliable no matter what. Like I mentioned today with my workout. Now, if I was to say that, I was relying on my motivation, I would not have went into that workout because I was just not motivated. I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't motivated for that workout, but I still went into it. So it's not about your motivation. It's all about your discipline and your ability to continue to show up. So again, motivation is unreliable. It's going to come and go based on your mood, energy, and your stresses, your life stresses. So like I mentioned, if I relied on my motivation today with my workout on how I was feeling, I would not have went into that workout and I would not have completed. So this is something that often fades after the initial excitement. So when you're getting started with a routine, and you're really, you know, feeling that sort of passion as you're getting started, that is your motivation that is sort of, gearing you up. So, yes, when you're getting started, your motivation is probably going to be pretty high, but you have to think about how you're going to be when that motivation fades. And that's something you have to really put into consideration. You cannot just go to your workout when you feel motivated. You have to go into it consistently and with discipline. It doesn't matter how you feel, you have to go into it. So it's not something that you can depend on daily. So momentum is built through action. So again, momentum is created by showing up repeatedly even on lower energy days. Like I mentioned today, that was a top of day for me, which is it's crazy that this is an appropriate, you know, live stream for the day because I was actually feeling this today. So again, you know, it's all about showing up despite what you feel. And what this does is this turns effort into habit. So you're going to reduce that need to feel ready when you start it. And like I mentioned, with me, it's become so automatic with me. Even if I have a day where I'm off, and where I feel like my energy's off and things of that nature, it's still automatic. I still go to my workout regardless because it's already ingrained in me and it's already a consistent habit. And I know that, if I just didn't go, it would just not be, it wouldn't be worth it. I know that no matter what, if I go into it, I'm going to feel better once I go through it. Even though it may not be great when I try to grow through it, it's still going to be worth it, if that makes sense. So again, that's how you have to think about it. It's more about continuing that, sort of momentum as you're going through your workouts. So again, imperfect workouts still count. Again, this is the same thing like what I'm mentioning today. Why imperfect workouts or why imperfect still works. So a shorter workout still stimulates muscle and reinforces the habit. So if you're putting some kind of stimulus on that muscle, that's still a workout that you did. You're still, again, putting in some form of effort. Light or low energy sessions are still supporting recovery and movement quality. So you're still having some form of progression. Now, it may not be as much as you would want for that particular day, but you're still progressing in some form. So again, showing up is going to keep that momentum alive and prevents the start over cycle. So the more that you show up, that's another thing to keep in mind. The more that you show up on those low energy days, it's going to be so much easier when those days happen again. So when you start to continue to show up on those low energy days, it's going to keep that habit going. And when you're relying on your motivation, that habit, you're going to completely drop off of that habit. So when you think about it in that context, when you get into that point to where you're still showing up on those low energy days, it becomes consistent and you're turning those workouts into a habit regardless. So consistency is training your mindset just as much as your muscles. So again, this, like what I mentioned, and I mentioned this many times, with clients, is that the way you approach, you know, especially a routine like fitness, nutrition, a lot of it is built on your mindset. It is a mind game, the way that I describe it, because a lot of times we can kind of sabotage ourselves with certain things that we tell ourselves. And that's just like what I've mentioned when you go through plateaus. Your mind is sort of running and it's telling you that you should just stop doing this or you should stop, just completely give up. And so it's all about battling this sort of, basically what is known, you probably heard the term like your inner saboteur, and that's kind of the way it is that you're sort of challenging that mindset and trying to, really shift the way you see things. And that's a big thing apart, part of staying consistent to something is how you approach, again, how you approach fitness, how you approach that mindset of staying consistent with it. So the real risk again is perfectionism is leading to skip days. So if you're trying to perfect everything, you're going to skip them because you're not going to have perfect days. And this is going to lead to a lost momentum and frustration in your routine. So again, when you're showing up to these workouts, even if they aren't what were thinking that they were going to be really solid workouts or really, workouts that you weren't expecting. Like I said, I've had many of those workouts where I've left thinking that I completely just messed up on that workout. Like I completely just screwed it up. And I've had those workouts. But the fact is that I did it. The fact is even if it wasn't a perfect workout, even if it wasn't what I was thinking was going to be as optimal, the fact is that I went through it regardless. Because if I've went through it, that's still progress. I still completed it. So that's how you have to see it, is that even when you have those days where it doesn't feel like it was like everything was not where it should have been, you still did it. And that's the way you have to approach it. So building identity through repetition. So the truth is you don't become fit by one big moment. You become fit by what you repeatedly do. So again, how identity is built is that every workout is a vote for the person you're becoming. Repeated actions are going to shape your habits, and habits shape that identity. So you don't feel like that person first, but you become that through action. So the more that you're showing up to these workouts, the more that you are building, your that clear identity on who you want to become. So what this looks like again in fitness is that showing up consistently is showing that I'm someone who trains regularly. I'm someone that has a good work ethic that shows up. Eating with intention means I'm someone who fuels my body. One thing too that you need to think about, and the last point here, prioritizing recovery means I take care of my body. One thing you need to think about too is if you're somebody who's already built a consistent routine, you're somebody who's pretty strict with your workouts, your nutrition, and you're getting a grasp on these things already. A majority of people don't do that. There's a lot of people that don't have these habits locked in like you may have. So that's something that you need to think about too, is that when you're even feeling like the moments where you're not, progressing as fast as you wanted to, or you're not really exactly where you want to be, the fact that you're building these habits that's really rare that many people stick to, is the fact that you are actually doing something that's not easily attainable by a lot of people, because a lot of people are not, you know, training their mindset in their way. They're not building these habits, these healthy habits in that way. And a lot of people, a lot of times, are just going through the motions with their, you know, daily life, that they don't build these, healthier habits. So that's another thing you need to think about. If you're already, sort of building these daily, healthy habits and you're being consistent with it, think about how much, better that you're doing, that you have these habits that a lot of people don't already have. So that's another thing that goes into the aspect of your mindset, is like you have to think about what you've already accomplished. That's an accomplishment in itself, because it's rare for somebody to, stick to something as consistently as that, And I tell this to my clients, is that you have to think about that. It's not easy to build a habit, like, especially with fitness, to try to, completely transform your daily life and to fit these healthy habits in. It's not easy. It's something that is very difficult. It's not something that's easy to attain. So if you're somebody who's actually gotten to the process of being able to do that, you're one of the rare people who, are making it, who are, making these habits work and, being consistent with it. So that's another thing that you need to think about, even when you have those bad days, that goes into the same concept. If you're already if you have that feeling of being guilty because your workout wasn't as good as you wanted to be, there's people that's not even showing up to workouts. So that's another thing again to think about as you're approaching, anything that feels like you're not making as much progress. So again, progress is built on the boring basics. So the truth is that results you want do not come from flashy routines. And this is something we oftentimes think about. They are going to come from doing the fundamentals consistently. It does not have to be really crazy to get results. It does get boring. It does get pretty boring a lot of times. But that is actually what works. It's how long you stay with it consistently. And this, I think, can not only be for fitness, but it can be for a lot of different aspects. But fitness, of course, is a great example of progress being built on boring, basic habits. So again, the basics are showing up to your workouts regularly, training with good form and control, eating enough protein and balanced meals, staying hydrated and managing stress, getting consistent sleep and recovery. And these are all things that I've pretty much are ingrained into me now, with my routine, and it's something that I've built. And again, I'm still doing these basics every day. They do get boring. That's like with my nutrition. My nutrition gets really boring. And I do try to change it up here and there, but I know that if I stick with what's basic and simple, it's always going to work. This what's going to work, if it's already worked now, it's going to work, in other words. So again, why they work, why these basics work is that they are repeatable. They're sustainable. When you make something sustainable, it's going to make it way more repeatable for you to show up more and more. And that's how you need to make it. And that's why I always mention that when we focus on a routine, you want to make it fit easily into your lifestyle. And once it fits easily into your lifestyle, it makes it sustainable, or it makes it repeatable, I should say, and it's going to make it sustainable. The more repeatable it is, the more sustainable it's going to be. So again, these build strong foundation for long-term progress. If you're focusing on trying to trying to choose really flashy routines and this and that, it's going to really feel short term. You're going to get completely, it's going to become like a fad and where it just fades instantly. But when you focus on foundational basics, this is what leads to long-term progress. You know, long-term progress is built on sustainable, repeatable actions, and that's just how it is. It's not anything flashy, it's just continuing to show up and doing what needs to be done. So these are going to reduce your injury risk and improve performance. They're going to create momentum without burnout. So again, like I said, when it becomes automatic, it makes it so much easier. Now the progress may take some time to get to, but if you continue to stick to those basics, it is going to happen. You just can't let your mindset, again, sabotage you. And that's where a lot of it comes from, where people can sort of delay their progress, is that you have to get it out of your head. You have to just keep showing up. So the real cost of skipping days. So the truth is that it's not the missed workout, it's the momentum you lose that matters most. Now, keep in mind when we're talking about skipping days, this is not just skipping, if you were to skip one day and to pick back up, that's not a bad thing. But when it becomes a habit, a negative habit in this, context, is when it's really, again, when it's going to affect your progress and you're going to really stumble when you're trying to get to your goal. So, what skipping really costs you? So, this is going to break your consistency and it's going to disrupt your routine. And it's going to make the next workout feel harder to start. So, the more that you try to have days where you're skipping, the more it's really going to extremely delay your progress. It's going to weaken the habit you're trying to build and it's going to increase the chance of skipping again. Now, like I said, if you have one day where you miss a workout and it's just, you know, a lot of things maybe happen that day and you really were planning on showing up, that's totally fine. If you have days where you just miss something, that's totally fine. The way that, you've likely heard is that it's okay when you skip one day, but when you skip 2 days, it's turning into a habit. And that's the way you kind of have to think about it. It's okay to have at least one day where you may have, sort of fell off the wagon, in other words. But the fact is that you get back on. That's what counts the most. So the hidden impact again is confidence takes a hit, and you're sort of sabotaging yourself in that way. Motivation is going to drop when momentum slows. Your progress is going to stall, of course, and it's not from one day, but repeated gaps. So again, it's not just one day you skip. That's not what it is. It's more about continuing to skip that's going to really, again, delay your progress overall. And again, that's how you have to sort of think about it, is the fact of getting back on, even when you have those moments where, progress, or, even when you have that day where you just don't want to show up. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Again, I hope that you found this helpful and valuable. This is a really important topic. I think a lot of people should really, hear about, especially with the routine. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't want to hear, to be honest, because a lot of us really want these quick results and we want these quick fixes. I was the same type of person too when it come to especially fitness, whenever I got started. I was the same person where I wanted to do a lot of these quick fixes, a lot of this stuff that just happens fast, you know. But the truth is that to have something sustainable to last, it's built on basic habits. It's built on something that if you can show up to it consistently every day, it's going to be something that lasts and it's going to be something that's sustainable and it's going to progress so much more efficiently. Now, it may take longer again, but if it's taking longer, it's likely going to be way more sustainable and it's something that you're going to be able to stick to for a long time. So, again, I think this is a very important topic. I think this is something that a lot of people should hear when they're approaching a fitness routine. It's all about making it consistent and sustainable at the same time. So thank you guys once again for checking this stream out. I hope you found it helpful and valuable. If you have any questions about anything I've discussed here today, feel free to let me know. And I do want to share that I will be uploading this to YouTube. Now, like I said, I do have a YouTube live stream that will be happening tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, again, that'll be at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want the link to that, feel free to let me know. But again, guys, check out my website at bponlinefitness.com for more information on online fitness coaching. But with all that being said, guys, I really appreciate your time. I hope you found this really helpful and valuable. And I will see you guys next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time in the next live stream. So thank you guys once again for watching.